Welcome to Dark Knight Films Reviews and another special video for this week. Today is my birthday. So, in honor of my birthday, I am going to detail to you my #1 horror films from every year in my life. Since this is going to be quite a long list, I am not going to go so far into details as I normally do. I will just be telling you why I picked this one, why I think it belongs here over others, and then I will move on. Alright, so, letting you know my age, this will be detailing 50 films. So, let's get on with it with the first one on the year I was born. 1973 has to be The Exorcist, directed by William Friedkin. 1973 had many a film that came out that was a great horror film, but none of them could hold a candle to this film. I was fortunate enough a few years back to have gotten to see this movie in the theaters for the first time ever, and it was quite an experience. Can't say enough about how great The Exorcist is. Definitely the best film of 1973. 1974 is another no-brainer with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, directed by Tobe Hooper. Now, this one, there was another film that could have competed with this one, kind of. But, yeah, and that was Black Christmas, that came out this year. But, no, as you saw in my review for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think this movie is the perfect horror film. So there is no way any other film in 74 could compete with this. This thing is a perfect classic. 1975, another no-brainer, Jaws, directed by Steven Spielberg. Now, most people would like to say, oh, Jaws isn't a horror movie. Bullshit. Bullshit. I beg to differ. I beg to differ. And as you saw in my review, I love this film. I mean, it had some flaws with the whole special effects with the shark, but overall, the performances of our three leads, you cannot beat this film for that. It was amazing because of Shaw, Scheider, and Dreyfuss. All right. 1976 is going to be The Omen, directed by Richard Donner. 1976 had several great films came out in the horror genre, and this was a tough one, but yeah, I had to go with The Omen because, I mean, Richard Donner directed this thing so creepy and so good, and it is so well acted by everyone in this film. I mean, this film is excellent. So, yeah, no other film in 76 can take this spot but The Omen. 1977, The Car, directed by Elliot Silverstein. Now, 77 didn't have as big a list of great films, and to me, The Car always stood out as being this really unique and cool film, and it was very similar to a previous film that I loved, directed by Steven Spielberg, which was his debut film, called Duel. And because of that, I've always had a soft spot for this film. And plus, I mean, James Brolin was awesome in this film. All right, so this next one may be a little controversial, but as immediately people would think Halloween. But for me, that's not the case. 1978 goes to Jaws 2, directed by Janot Schwark. Now this film, the reason I put it above a film like Halloween is, yes, Halloween, I love Halloween, but Jaws 2 was every bit, to me, as badass as the original Jaws, but it had an improved shark in it, as I said in my review, and for a slasher fan like myself, it felt like a shark in a slasher film, and that is hard to beat, even by Michael Myers. 1979, we have Alien, directed by Ridley Scott. Now, another group of nitwits would probably try to say that's not a horror film as well, but again, I beg to differ, and this is my list, so I can put whatever films I want on it. If you don't like it, make your own list. Alien, to me, is, much like Jaws 2, is a slasher film in space with an alien as your slasher. It's picking them off one by one, just like in a slasher film. So that is the reason why this one, there's no other films this year that can compare to Alien. And there were some good ones in that year. All right, 1980, we have The Shining, directed by Stanley Kubrick. Now, there were, again, great films that came out in 1980 in the horror genre. But yeah, The Shining, Jack Nicholson, it was amazing as a film. So, yeah, there's no way I'm not putting The Shining in here for 1980. 1981, we have An American Werewolf in London, directed by John Landis. Now, this film came out the same year as another werewolf film, The Howling. And I love The Howling too, but I just do not think The Howling can compete with An American Werewolf in London. This is one of the greatest werewolf movies ever made, and had some of the most groundbreaking, badass effects ever. So, yep, this makes 1981 for sure. 1982, we have The Thing, directed by John Carpenter. Yes, John Carpenter did make my best horror films of my lifetime list, but not with Halloween, with The Thing. This film, I mean, much like An American Werewolf in London, it was so groundbreaking with its special effects and with the great performance by Kurt Russell in this thing. I mean, this is, at the time it was released, it did not do as well as it should have. But in recent times, it has gained its cult following, and it is one of the best horror films ever made. 1983, we have Psycho 2, directed by Richard Franklin. This is the way you do a sequel, and do it right. It was so well done. Excellently done film. 1984, we have Friday the 13th, the final chapter, directed by Joseph Zito. Now, as many of you have already saw in my review, this is my favorite Friday the 13th film of all time. And there's no way any other film in '84 could compete with that film. There were some good ones that came out this year. But no, I'm sorry. Final Chapter was the best Friday the 13th film in my opinion. And that is why it is the best film for 1984. 1985, we have Fright Night, directed by Tom Holland. Now this film, oh my God, I went to the theaters, and I was just a kid seeing this in the theaters, and I was, much like my dad used to tell me about whenever he would go see movies like Christopher Lee's Horror of Dracula, how he felt seeing that film in the theaters. That's how I felt seeing Fright Night in the theaters. This film was the ultimate vampire film to me, and it still is to this day. I love this fucking film. I mean, it is so well directed and well acted. If you I've reviewed this film, so check out my review on that one. But yeah, definitely the best film of 1985. 1986, The Hitcher, directed by Robert Harmon. Now, this film is, I mean, there were great films again this year that came out, but to me, the first time I ever saw The Hitcher, Rutger Hauer, C. Thomas Howell, Jennifer Jason Leigh, the direction by Robert Harmon in this thing, it is so good. The sequences where he is tormenting C. Thomas Howell's character in here is so good. This film is the best film of '86 for sure. No competition here. I'm sorry. 1987, Hellraiser, directed by Clive Barker. '87 was another year that there were other films that came out that were pretty damn good horror films. But in my opinion, Hellraiser is above all of them. Clive Barker did an amazing job with this film. The introduction to Pinhead and his Cenobites was just incredible. Great, great film. Cannot say enough good things about this film, as I did in my review for this film. 1988, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, directed by Dwight H. Little. As I said in my review of Halloween 4, this is my favorite Halloween film of all time. And some people might think, hey, you're crazy for thinking that this is the best one. But, you know, I have always loved this film. I saw this film in the theaters just like I did Fright Night. I've always held this deep connection to this film, and I've always loved this film. It is, to me, the best Halloween film ever made. Best writing, best acting, everything. It's perfect. 1989, we have Intruder, directed by Scott Spiegel. Now, this is a very obscure film, and not a lot of people know about this one, and I think that's a shame. Scott Spiegel is an amazing director who learned a lot from working alongside Sam Raimi on multiple films, including some of the Evil Dead films. And I just think this film, in its director's cut, of course, with the blood and the gore all intact, is just a great slasher film. It's not the greatest of all time, but for this year, I think this film was above all the others. 1990, Night of the Living Dead, directed by Tom Savini. Now, this was one of the first sort of horror-like remakes and everything, not counting something like, The Thing, which was totally different than what the old 50s film was. This was one of the first of the remakes that is well done. Tom Savini pays homage to George Romero's original film in such good respect. And this film is just such a really good tribute to that film. And it's its own thing as well. It's such a good film. If you've not seen it, check it out. 1991, Silence of the Lambs, directed by Jonathan Demme. Now this one's another no-brainer for this year. I mean, there were some good horror films that came out this year, but none of them made the impact that Silence of the Lambs did. Great performance by Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster and Ted Levine, who doesn't get enough credit for that film. So, definitely deserves to be the #1 film of 1991. 1992, we have Army of Darkness, directed by Sam Raimi. Now, I know you guys are thinking, what the hell? You didn't put any of the other Evil Dead movies on here before this, Why this one? Well, unfortunately, Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 were up against better films, so for their particular year. This year, 92, I don't think there was any other horror film this year, to me, that was as good as Army of Darkness. It's where Ash fully came into his own and became a total fucking badass. Gotta love this film. 1993, Warlock, Armageddon, directed by Anthony Hickok. Now, this one is so good. The late Julian Sands was amazing as the title character, the Warlock. In the original Warlock, which I did not put because, like I said, some of the films that year that film came out were better. But this one, no film this year was better than this one, in my opinion. It was it upped the stakes from the previous film, and it gave Julian Sands so much more to do on screen. And he is so charismatic and so badass as the character. Great film. I love this film. 1994, Interview with the Vampire, directed by Neil Jordan. Now, this is another no-brainer. I mean, there was a lot of great films, again, that came out in 94 in the horror genre. But hard to top Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Antonio Banderas, and the great introduction to Kirsten Dunst. 1995 is Demon Knight, directed by Ernest Dickerson. Now this one is a Tales from the Crypt Presents movie, and it was the first of what was supposed to be a series of these films. This one was successful. The future one, Bordello of Blood, was not. So they didn't continue these, unfortunately. But, this one, you get, well, William Sadler getting to play a good guy for once, and an amazing villain role by Billy Zane in here. The only negative I have about this film is that they kill off William Sadler's character in favor of making Jada Pinkett Smith the main hero by the end of the film, which really irked me, that the way this film ended. But other than that, best film of this year. 1996 is From Dusk Till Dawn, directed by Robert Rodriguez. Now, 96 could have went to Scream, but as much as I love Scream, I do not think it is as good as From Dusk Till Dawn was. I mean, this movie is so well done just because of the way it starts off as this, Quentin Tarantino-like crime spree drama, following the Gecko brothers, and then all of a sudden, at the end of the film, it just turns into this surprisingly effective vampire film, and it was just so good. Well acted, well done film. I love From Dusk Till Dawn. 1997, we have Scream 2, directed by Wes Craven. Yes, Wes Craven finally made my list. And it was with Scream 2. Scream 2, many believe, is the best of the Scream films. And as many of you saw in my ranking of the Scream films, I pretty much agree with that. So, this film just, the location, as I said in my review of this, and the rankings for these films, the location change just really befitted this movie and helped it greatly. Wes Craven was much more sure with what he was wanting to do with this film, it seemed, and it only had one drawback, and that was Laurie Metcalf. 1998, we have Urban Legend, directed by Jamie Blanks. Now, there were a lot of movies in 1998 that could have made this list, but to me, I went and seen Urban Legend in the theaters, and I was shocked. I thought this was going to be just another Scream ripoff, and Jamie Blanks put so much heart and love into this film that I think it is one of the better of the more modern slasher films. Great film. Definitely had to be the best film of 1998. 1999, we have Sleepy Hollow, directed by Tim Burton. Now, as many of you have noticed from my latest reviews of like Batman and Batman Returns, I'm not really a big fan of Tim Burton and his over-the-top goofy style. But with this film, again, yes, he wastes Christopher Walken once again, just like he did in Batman Returns. But Johnny Depp, Christina Ricci are so good in this film together that I can overlook a lot of the goofier shit that he put in this film. The scenes with the Headless Horseman killing people is brutal. It's right out of a frickin' slasher film, and that's why I love this film. 2000, we have Dracula 2000, directed by Patrick Lecere. Now, this one introduced the world to Gerard Butler. And it was an amazing debut for him. Not many people think of this film anymore, unfortunately. But it was a very, very good vampire film. And is well directed, well acted. Of Christopher Plummer is really good in this as Van Helsing. And of course, Gerard Butler is amazing as Dracula in this. Definitely the best film of 2000 to me. 2001, Valentine, directed by Jamie Blanks. Now, much like Urban Legend, Valentine came out, and I was already a fan of Jamie Blanks' direction thanks to what he did on Urban Legend. And with Valentine, he stepped it up and did similar to what he did on Urban Legend, but he did it in a different way and made it unique and made it really cool. And that's why I love this film. It's got an amazing cast with Denise Richards and Marley Shelton, David Boreanaz, and it is just such a cool slasher film. One of the best of the more modern slasher films of this period. 2002, we have 28 Days Later, directed by Danny Boyle. Now, this film, I went into this thinking it was going to be just a traditional zombie film. All advertisements for it looked like it was going to be a zombie film. And then I watched it, and all of the intricacies that Danny Boyle puts into this film with the plot and the storyline and how everything goes down and how dangerous these infected people are once they flip out and go crazy. It's just a great film. And I just can't say enough good about this film. I mean, it definitely was the best film of 2002, in my opinion. 2003, we have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, directed by Marcus Nispel. Now, I know you're going to be thinking, you're a real mark for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, aren't you? No, I didn't put Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. I didn't put Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 on any of the other rankings, or definitely not 4. But this film, much like Night of the Living Dead, directed by Tom Savini, which I already had on this list, was a really good remake that did its own thing with the story and made it its own. And that's what I like to see with a remake. If you're going to do it unique and do it in a cool way. And they did it. They did it. And you can't beat R. Lee Ermey as Sheriff Hoyt. That was just a great performance. 2004, we have Saw, directed by James Wan. Now, Saw is a really great film, and it really jumbles your expectations with Tobin Bell's Jigsaw doing all these voices and stuff in the dialogue and everything throughout it, because you're never realizing the twist that's coming by the end of that film. Danny Glover is great, of course, in here as Detective Trapp, and I just really love this film, and I don't think there was any other film in 2004 that can compare to this one. 2005, we have The Devil's Rejects, directed by Rob Zombie. Now, this one was a hard one for me because this year, also, another film came out this year called The Descent. And I really had a hard time measuring these out to go with The Devil's Rejects, but it did eventually go and come out on top on this. And it's just such a great film. It is one of Rob Zombie's best of his films that he's directed. And I think the performances by Sid Haig and Bill Moseley and Sherry Moon Zombie, normally, you know, she's like, you know, what the hell? In this, she was great. And so, yeah, this is a really, really good film. Best film of this year, for sure. All right, 2006, we have Hatchet, directed by Adam Green. Now, this was another year that I didn't know which one to put because this same year, See No Evil came out with Glenn Jacobs, a.k.a. Kane, from the WWE. And as much as, you know, you would think, oh, that would be a bad film, that was a pretty good film. But I just think that the overall setting and the location for Hatchet was better than the location in See No Evil. So that's why I chose this one as my pick for this year. 2007, we have The Mist, directed by Frank Darabont. Now, this film is so cool. Thomas Jane is badass in this film. The creatures that are killing the characters end up being less deadly because of this psychosis that happens inside this place that they're all bored up in, trying to stay away from these creatures. And the people inside become just as dangerous as the creatures outside. So it was such a great film, and it has that poor kick in the nuts ending for Thomas Jane. But yeah, it's definitely the best film of 2007. 2008, we have The Strangers, directed by Brian Bertino. Now this one, I didn't get to see till a little later. I didn't see it when it came out in the theaters. But when I did see it, I had heard some good things about it. And then whenever I saw it, I was like, wow, this is really a bold take on a slasher film, because it didn't follow the regular tropes. This group of three psychos, you know, just stalking this woman and her husband. It doesn't have a high cast or body count in it. But sometimes a movie can be simple and be effective. And this is the film that was very effective with everything that it did. And that's why it is the #1 film of this year. 2009, we have Friday the 13th, directed by Marcus Nispel. Now, this year also brought out My Bloody Valentine 3D. And ironically, both those films starred the Winchester boys from Supernaturals. And I just, as much as I love My Bloody Valentine 3D, I think Friday the 13th is the better film, even though they basically just took the plots for parts 1, 2, 3, and 4 and jumbled them together into one film. But Jared Padalecki is very likable in the lead, and Danielle Panabaker was great in this as well, even though they fucked up by killing her off, in my opinion. But yeah, definitely the best film of 2009. 2010 is I Spit on Your Grave, directed by Stephen R. Monroe. Now, another remake that I think, to me, the original I Spit on Your Grave was a good enough film, but it was always hampered by not having a music score to enhance the scenes. So when this remake came out, I was like, well, that makes sense to me, to make a remake of something that to me wasn't as good a film as it could have been. So I think that this is one of those rare cases to me, and I know I'm probably in the minority here, but where a remake was better than the original, in my opinion. 2011 is Fright Night, directed by Craig Gillespie. Now, much like the 1985 film, I think this film, there's no other film in the year it came out that can surpass it. This was a unique remake in the ways that I mentioned before. It does its own thing with the story. It doesn't try to just be a full-on, shot-for-shot remake of the original Fright Night, which is good. And that's the reason why I think it was the best film of the year. It is a really good vampire film and well done, well acted. You can't beat it for this year, I don't think. 2012 is Maniac, directed by Frank Calfone. Now this one, with Elijah Wood in it, I've already reviewed it on my channel. You will see the review up there. This was such a good remake because it, like I said, any remake that does its own thing with it and doesn't really fuck up the story and make it bad, I'm on board for. And this one, making it all POV throughout the movie, was unique and interesting and made it just one kick-ass film and the best film of 2012. 2013 is The Curse of Chucky, directed by Don Mancini. Now, this film a lot of people shit on and act like it's not really that great of a film, and maybe it wasn't as good as the other films. No, it wasn't. But for this year, I think there's no other film that comes close to being as good as this film. I think it was well done. Fiona Dwarf and Brad Dourif do a great job in this film, playing their parts. And it leads to a great television series with Chucky. At least the first season. I haven't seen the second season yet, so we'll have to wait on that one to see what my opinion on that one is. But anyway. 2014 is See No Evil 2, directed by Jen and Sylvia Soska. Now this one, Glenn Jacobs returns as the killer, and he's equally as good in this one. They give him a mask in this one, which I don't think he needed, but whatever. And Danielle Harris is very good in this film. As is Catherine Isabel, even though she's not in it as much as Danielle Harris is. But yeah, this is a really, really good film, and I think it's the best film of this year. I mean, this year did not have a lot of really great films, so when this one's your top film, you know the year was pretty rough. 2015 is Tales of Halloween, directed by Neil Marshall and Darren Lynn Bousman. And this one is a really cool anthology film, and it's so well done. It was definitely the best film of this year, which didn't really give us that many really standout moments in horror, unfortunately. 2016 is Don't Breathe, directed by Fede Alvarez. Now, this one, Stephen Lang is so good in this film that there's no way this film cannot be in my number one for this year, because this performance is this blind fucking man that defends his home against these thieves. It was such a unique and cool take on the horror genre, and well done film. Well done. 2017 is Happy Death Day, directed by Christopher Landon. Now, this film is really goofy in a lot of ways because it's basically a horror variation on the Bill Murray movie Groundhog Day. But for me, it worked. And it was the best film of 2017, which isn't saying very much because, I mean, there weren't really that many standout films that year like the previous years. So yeah, this was a really fun, good film, I think.
2018 is A Quiet Place, directed by John Krasinski.
And this one is very unique because of the whole plot line with the if you make noise, the creatures will come and kill you, rip you apart and everything. That was pretty cool because everybody has to be really quiet while these creatures are around. So this was a very good film, and definitely the best film of this year. 2019 is Dr. Sleep, directed by Mike Flanagan. Now this is the sequel to The Shining, and a lot of people like to shit on this film and say it's not as good as the original. Well, of course not. It's not as good as the original, but does it do things right with the characters? I think it does. I think it was a well done follow-up to The Shining, and I don't think it gets enough credit. And it was definitely the best film of this year. 2020 is Underwater, directed by William Eubank. Now, a lot of you might be going, what the fuck is Underwater? Well, this was a very unique little horror film, sci-fi kind of a mix. And it starred Kristen Stewart. And normally I am not a big fan of Kristen Stewart. I think I've only liked her in one or two things. But she's pretty good in this. She's pretty good in this. Plus, it has Jessica Henwick in it, and I love her anyway as an actress. So, yeah, it's the best we had of 2020, in my opinion. 2021 is A Wrong Turn, directed by Mike P. Nelson. Well, yeah, this film, in my opinion, is not as good as the original Wrong Turn. But for this year, this is the best we got, fellas, in my opinion. So, it's not the best, but it's the best of this year, in my opinion. 2022, we have Megan, directed by Gerard Johnstone. Now, this fucking film really surprised me, as you can see in my review of it above. There's not much else I can say about this one. You just go watch my review. I watched the the director's cut that came out on Peacock. I did watch the theatrical cut to see what the differences were, and yeah, the director's cut is far better, or the unrated cut, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, Megan, best film of 2022 for sure. And now we come to this year, 2023. Evil Dead Rise, directed by Lee Cronin. Now this could have went to Scream 6, but I just think Evil Dead Rise is just a little bit better than Scream 6. It's very close for these two films this year. I watched Terrifier 2, which everybody raved about, and I just don't think that is as good a film as these two films. So yeah, Evil Dead Rise did edge out Scream 6 just slightly to get this spot for the number one film, in my opinion, of 2023. All right. That's it. I have went through every film throughout my illustrious life of 50 years. Don't expect me to do this in another 50 years. I'm not doing 100 of these, okay? But this was a pretty fun video. If you like this video, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys' list is for your favorite horror films every year of your lifetime. However long you've been on alive. Let me know in the comments down below what your best films of throughout your lifetime are, from your birth date all the way up until today. I'd like to know what the rest of you guys think on yours. And if you've liked this video, do not forget to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon so you can be notified of future videos. Alright, so tomorrow we will continue forward with these unique videos, because this video caused this, because this would have gone on Action Movie Night and it wouldn't have fit. So I stopped the normal scheduled content, and for this week I just decided to do ranking videos and stuff to go along with this one. So hope you've been enjoying them, and I hope you'll continue to come back and enjoy the rest of my videos that I'm doing in this little series for this week. Thanks for watching.